inviting you actually to do a writing prompt with me. So if you have a pen and paper handy, I would love you to write this down and to play with me a little bit. So like you to write down the following prompt. If you had the adventurous spirit of a 5-year-old and the erotic dreams and fantasies of an adult, what would you do? I'll repeat that. If you had the adventurous spirit of a 5-year-old and the erotic dreams and fantasies of an adult, what would you do? I think this is a fascinating writing prompt. I plan on doing this a little bit later, but I can just tell you a few ideas that popped into my head. Was I would really explicitly explore that childlike adventurous spirit that I used to have when I was 5. That no matter I thought my parents were loving, and at least they always had a place for me in their heart, and I knew I could always run around with my friends and go back to them. When my adventures were over with my friends, whether it was exploring a building that we didn't know who lived in when there was a wedding going on, or it was running across the playground, or getting on the rooftops in the city where there was tar on my sneakers, or whatever it was. Even though now it seems somewhat innocuous, for me it was an adventure. Going to new places, exploring new fields outside that I had never been to. Those were always chances for me to find new things. And if I could use that spirit with with the adult-like erotic desires, that's completely fascinating, because I believe that all of us have that inner child still really out there, curious, adventurous, wanting that next new thing, and being an adult, and wanting that kind of safety, wanting to feel safe and loving, as well as being able to explore and be adventurous. I think those two things match really, really well together. And that's something I personally would love to explore and love to do with a loving partner, because I would feel safe with them to do that, and feel safe to express my fantasies with them. And I think that it's really fertile ground to be in that space and to get closer to each other in that space. So I invite you to explore that, and feel free to send me your writing. I'd love to read it. I want to continue on this whole idea of remembrance. I think that the biggest thing about it for me is that sometimes we don't listen to what our heart is telling us, or what our inner womb space is telling us. We don't listen to our bodies. And it's really our soul talking. It's our soul telling us where our life is going. When I had a lot of experiences with men in the past where I didn't really trust them, I felt it in my body. And especially I was traveling alone. I was hitchhiking, and there was a time when somebody picked me up in Paris, and I went to Marseille with him, and and then I didn't feel good about it anymore, and I said, I need to get out of the car. And he was like, okay, and he wasn't really that compliant. He wasn't the greatest, but I never got myself in a bad situation. I trusted my instincts then. And I think about that later in my life, like when my instincts were telling me, or my intuition was telling me something, why didn't I go with it? Why didn't I leave once I was in a bad situation? And I don't really have an answer to that. I mean, my only answer is my logical mind, rules my life. And so that's why I'm focusing on remembrance today, to tell you to listen to your body, to listen to your inner voice. I have a masseuse I go to. I've been going to for about a month, and she's amazing. She makes me feel really, really good, really relaxed. And every time that she, she ends each session by massaging my third eye. And undoubtedly, every single time she will focus on my third eye, and I will fall asleep, even if it's for like 30 seconds. Like, I am totally out. It's like I'm unconscious. I don't know. She has some sort of magic when she does that. But it's a connection to the divine. Every single time she does that, I have these amazing, inspiring thoughts. The last time it was like this oneness, and it just happens in an instant. And it is totally divine. It isn't something I was thinking about. It isn't something that just, like that I was planning to think about. It just happens. And so, I'm really, trying to bring home that idea that you are divine. The divine is talking through you. Divine is inside your soul, telling you what your life purpose is. For many of you, if you're still searching for what it is that you want to do with your life, or that divine partner who you want to meet, let your soul guide you. Let yourself go with your feelings and your intuition and your heart, and just let it happen, because it's bound to happen if you let it in. And I want to share a poem with you that I wrote about regarding this topic last year. It's actually called Remembrance. You can find it on medium.com. I thought I had loved before, though I never felt so joyful and burgeoning with possibilities. I realized that only when I truly loved and accepted myself, my heart expanded like the earth, soaking in the nourishment after a torrential rain. My heart opened up like a flower and remembered a love so pure, like the water flowing from a hot spring. A love so deep as the darkness near the ocean floor. For as we shed our cloaks that were holding us back, we danced magically, seeing only each other. Our hearts were finally free from our minds to feel the love that was reserved for each other. And this poem just came to me. I had somebody in mind when I was writing it, though what I'm trying to tell you is that part of our desires, part of really opening ourselves up and being vulnerable and letting ourselves listen to our intuition opens up a creativity in us that, again, is a portal for the sacred, for the divine, to flow through us, to create poems such as this one. All my poetry just kind of I didn't really even think about it half the time. It just kind of flowed through my pen, from my body, from my heart, actually, through my arm to my hands. To be honest with you, our hands are an extension of our heart. And that's how I feel really about my poetry, that it just, just poured out of my heart. And it's really telling me what my path is, and I have to tell you, the ride has not been easy. I've had a lot of limiting beliefs of, can I really be loved? Am I really worthy? And so many limiting beliefs throughout my journey, and I have to also say that each time, it really took a lot of healing to come to a point to say to myself, that was a limiting belief of mine, but that is no longer true. I am not living out this old pattern anymore. I am remembering this because I am limitless. I am an infinite being with infinite possibilities. And so are each and every one of you listening today, and every person on this planet, whether they're listening to me or not. We're so unique, we're so powerful, we're so strong. We have it in us to remember and to live a beautiful, amazing, abundant life. I wanted to thank Rachel for giving me her music, because that first song that was played as this podcast began was about the moon. And the new moon was yesterday, and with each new moon, I normally set an intention, and my intention is about abundance in every aspect of my life, in love, in my finances, in my family life, with my children, with all my relationships, with my animals, my communion with nature, with my clients. I desire abundance. It's my birthright to have abundance. It's the birthright of my clients and everybody who interacts with me to have abundance. This is my intention for the new moon. And as each new moon, I also release something, and what I did was I actually wrote down what I wanted to release on pieces of paper, and I burned them as a significant way to let them go. Old patterns, old limiting beliefs that are stopping me from really living an abundant life. And it's this remembrance of who I really am authentically, of what I really deserve. Love is my birthright, as well as for each and every one of you. If there's anything that isn't serving you, I invite you to release that, whether it's a job that you dislike, or a relationship that isn't serving you anymore. I invite you to be brave and focus on how to make a change. And I understand that this is not always easy. It's easy to hear, sometimes when other people do it, but then when you think of yourself, you're like, wow, how can I do that? I have bills to pay. How can I possibly do that? Well, I invite you to book a call with me. Go to my Facebook page. I have a Facebook business page, Wild Writers Heal, and click on the Book Now button, and book a 30-minute call with me. Let's talk, let's chat, let's figure out how you can get the life that you really, really desire to have, because I think it's completely possible. There are no, I don't believe anymore that, like my mother thought it was impossible to leave her family. She felt like she had no choice, but I don't believe we're living in a world like that anymore. I believe that there are always choices to be made. And at a time when people, like women especially, didn't choose to make those kinds of choices, I feel like we're living in a completely different age now, where women are really taking back their power to make those kinds of choices, and really taking, standing up for themselves. And I applaud that. I'm totally for that. And I think that also serves all your relationships, not just for yourself, but for your interactions with your children, with your partner, with your animals. Really standing up for yourself, because that's sexy. It's sexy to take care of yourself. It's sexy to nurture yourself. I actually want to take you through an exercise that talks just about this, in terms of nurturing yourself, and it discusses. I'll give you a couple of exercises. Part of my own journey was expressing my desires through words to my lover, but there were times when when telling him was difficult, and writing them in public was much easier. But a part of these steps are steps that I use to really just get back into my own body, which is part of the focus of this podcast today, is remembering is through your body. And, when I was going through difficult situations and difficult relations with people, I would get back to self-pleasuring myself, and self-pleasuring can include, touching yourself, and being very sensual with yourself. And it can be masturbating, it can be really feeling all parts of your your sacral chakra, your sexual organs, and really enjoying it. And I invite you to go there, if that's what you feel comfortable with. And I really invite you to be really comfortable with your body. Really explore your body as if you were a child again, as if it was the first time You were looking at your sexual organs and you want to know how it feels. I invite